That's a giant human skeleton. Except it's a viral Photoshop hoax. And this is apparently the remains of Noah's Ark. Only it isn't. From Columbus's trip to prove that the Earth was round, to Indiana Jones playing fast and loose with stolen relics, archaeology is drowning in myths that just won't quit. I'm Mike with List 25, and these are 25 ancient myths that archaeologists want you to forget. 25. Those giants you see on social media every now and then. Okay, let's get this one out of the way right now. Every photo you've seen of enormous bones sticking out of the dirt or giant skeletons towering over archaeologists is a digital fake. Reuters, National Geographic, and pretty much every scientist with a pulse have debunked these so-called giants as obvious Photoshop jobs. There's zero credible evidence of a lost race of giants anywhere. No ancient bones stretching 20 feet tall, no hidden societies of colossal humans, nothing. Even the largest ancient hominids fall well within normal human-sized ranges. Still, the internet loves a tall tale. See what I did there? So these hoaxes keep popping up like bad weeds. If you see one, just call it what it is. Clickbait. 24. The Aztecs thought the Spanish were gods. Have you heard the one about the Aztecs believing the Spanish conquistadors were gods? That's a legend cooked up after the fact. There's no solid evidence the Aztecs truly believed Hernan Cortes was the feathered serpent god Quetzalcoatl come back to reclaim his throne. Montezuma did welcome him with gifts and caution, but never did he bow down to a divine being. In fact, the whole white gods myth came from Spanish sources after the conquest, starting in the 1550s, and turned into a convenient way to justify their victory. There's not a single pre-conquest Aztec account confirming they thought Quetzalcoatl had returned. The Spaniards were recognized as human. Yes, they were strange, powerful, and terrifying, sure, but human all the same. 23. The Clovis people were the first Americans. The Clovis weren't the first Americans, not even close. For decades, we were taught they showed up around 13,000 years ago, crossing the Bering Land Bridge and spreading south as the earliest humans in the Americas. But newer evidence has smashed that tidy timeline. Archaeologists found sites like Monteverde in Chile dating back to 14,500 years ago, with hints of even earlier occupations pushing beyond 20,000 years. Radiocarbon dating also revealed that Clovis culture lasted only about 200 years, which makes it impossible for them to have colonized both continents alone. The fact of the matter is that other people were here earlier than Clovis, traveling by multiple routes, coastal, inland, or both. The Clovis first story was neat, but it oversimplified a much more complex migration history. 22. Finders keepers, and all of that. You can't just dig up ancient artifacts whenever you feel like it. If you come across something that might have archaeological worth, you have to know that randomly pulling treasures out of the ground might destroy priceless clues about the past. Archaeologists rely on context, meaning exactly where and how an object is buried, to piece together stories of ancient lives. If you yank something out without documenting its surroundings, you're basically tearing pages out of history's book. That's why professionals use careful excavation methods and detailed records to protect every scrap of information. In many places, digging or collecting artifacts without a permit isn't just irresponsible, it's illegal. So if you ever come across something old and mysterious, leave it right where it is and call an expert. 21. Indiana Jones is not what people should be aspiring to. Real archaeologists cringe at Indiana Jones. The movies are a lot of fun. I mean, I absolutely love them, and the guy definitely has a certain panache, but his go-to methods would get him kicked off any dig site in real life. Smashing through temples, snatching artifacts, and skipping all the required paperwork is exactly what modern archaeology is trying to stop. Real archaeologists follow strict ethics to protect cultural sites, working with local communities and preserving every scrap of evidence. Indy's thrill-seeking, loot-first attitude would make him a relic hunter, not a respectful scientist. As entertaining as his adventures are, they give the public a warped view of archaeology. The real field is about patience, teamwork, and a lot of careful research. Shout out to Josh Gates. 20. Archaeologists are in the people business, not the dinosaur business. You'd be surprised how many people still think that archaeologists go digging for T-Rex bones. That job actually belongs to paleontologists and geologists who study ancient life forms and fossils. Archaeologists, on the other hand, focus on human stories, the tools, pottery, burial sites, arts, and everyday things left behind that reveal how people lived. And it's not all about fieldwork either. Most spend more time in labs or archives than anywhere else, cleaning finds, analyzing samples, dating artifacts, and writing up results. If the word archaeologist makes you think of massive dinosaur skeletons, you're mixing it up. 19. All the mound builder arguments. In the 19th century, some people claimed the enormous earthworks across North America came from a lost civilization, refusing to believe that the Native Americans could have built them. That idea was rooted in the kind of attitudes that painted the indigenous people as too primitive for advanced engineering. Archaeology has shut that down completely. Excavations, especially by the Smithsonian, have shown beyond a doubt that the native communities planned, built, and maintained these impressive mounds, including cities like Cahokia. These societies had sophisticated governments, trade networks, and engineering knowledge that rivaled civilizations anywhere else in the world. We should give credit where it's due. 18. The pyramids were built by paid laborers, not slaves. And it's really time this one got put to rest. The pyramids weren't built by slaves under the whip, but by skilled workers who took pride in their craft. Archaeologists have uncovered entire worker villages near the Great Pyramids at Giza, complete with barracks, bakeries, breweries, and leftover bones showing the laborers ate quality cuts of meat. These builders were most likely farmers drafted during the Nile's off-season, or paid crews working shifts. We also know that they got paid in food, beer, and sometimes clothing, and worked in shifts to keep construction moving year-round. Graffiti on the stones, yes, they had time to work on that too, even show team names, like the Friends of Khufu, so these men probably worked with a sense of pride and identity while they built the pharaoh's monuments. 17. Columbus's people were well aware that the Earth was round. Columbus didn't have to convince anyone the Earth was round. By the time he set sail, educated Europeans had known for centuries that our planet was a sphere, thanks to Greek calculations going back to the 3rd century BCE. The real argument was about distance. Columbus thought Asia was much closer to Europe sailing west, while most experts warned the ocean was too wide. They were right, and Columbus accidentally ran into the Americas instead. The whole idea that he faced crowds of flat earth believers only popped up in the 19th century to dramatize his story. In reality, no serious scholar of his day needed a lecture about the shape of the world. Today, on the other hand. 16. Tutankhamun's curse never existed. When Howard Carter finally opened the Boy King's tomb in 1923, newspapers couldn't resist spinning tales of supernatural revenge. They blamed Lord Carvedon's death, caused by an infected mosquito bite, on the ancient curse, then piled on every faintly tragic event from cobra-eating canaries to house fires. Reporters even went so far as to come up with a spooky inscription to the effect. But the truth is, no inscription threatened death, and most of those present at the dig lived long, healthy lives. In fact, Howard Carter, the lead archaeologist, died at 64 in 1939, over 16 years later. All of the experts have made it crystal clear. There was no curse, just a lot of hype and a public hungry for ghost stories. 15. Men hunted, women played house. The Stone Age wasn't just a boys' club. For ages, people have been picturing Stone Age men off hunting while the women stayed home gathering berries, weaving baskets, and so on. But archaeology tells a different story. Evidence from sites in Peru and elsewhere shows that some of the women hunted big game too, and in all likelihood even made their own tools. It also makes no sense that the men alone would shape the stone scrapers used to clean hides, a job everyone in the group needed. The old man the hunter, woman the gatherer idea was built on 1950s bias, not prehistoric truth. Our ancestors did what it took to survive, and everyone pitched in. 14. It's not Noah's Ark. This is not Noah's Ark. no matter how many times people shout otherwise. Every so often, someone claims to have found the legendary boat on a mountainside, usually pointing to a strange rock formation in Turkey. But geologists have shown it's just that, a rock formation. No confirmed discovery of Noah's Ark has ever turned up, and even some creationist groups admit these supposed Ark sightings fall apart under close study. The same goes for other biblical treasures like the Ark of the Covenant. Archaeologists keep digging, but so far nothing has shown up that proves these objects exist outside Scripture. Most of these claims come down to wishful thinking or a misunderstanding of natural features, not evidence. 13. No, the Mayans did not predict a 2012 apocalypse. The Maya never predicted the world would end in 2012. That whole doomsday thing came from a misunderstanding of their calendar, which is cyclical, not a one-way countdown to oblivion. December 21st, 2012 just marked the end of a Baktun, a calendar cycle roughly 400 years long before rolling over to start again. It also marked my friend Nick's 26th birthday, so hey Nick, what's up? Ancient Maya texts even mention dates far beyond 2012, proving that they weren't expecting an apocalypse. The whole end of the world hype was whipped up by modern media and New Age writers looking for a dramatic headline. In reality, the Maya saw time as a series of repeating cycles, not a ticking doomsday clock, and would probably have laughed at the idea of a global meltdown. Will they have laughed at Nick's birthday, though? Maybe. 12. The ancient Greeks and Romans painted their statues in reds, blues, and golds. Ancient Greek and Roman statues were way more colorful than you'd ever guess. The sleek, white marble figures in museums might look timeless today, but in the old days, the Greeks and Romans painted their statues in bold reds, blues, and even flashy golds, bringing them to life with vivid detail. Over time, wind, rain, and centuries of cleaning stripped away the fragile pigments. And that blank marble look ended up fooling generations of Western art lovers into thinking the statues were meant to be colorless. Recent studies using UV light, pigment residue analysis, and 3D imaging have revealed microscopic traces of paint that managed to survive in these statues' crevices. Researchers have even made full-color reconstructions of statues like the Peplos Cor and Augustus of Prima Porta, showing their beautiful patterns and colorful tones. So that perfect white Venus or Apollo was anything but plain. 11. In the old days, everyone died young. It's true, the average life expectancy was about 30 in many old societies, but that number is skewed by high infant and child mortality. If you made it through childhood, you had a solid shot at reaching your 50s, 60s, or even your 70s. Ancient writings talk about elders giving advice, and tombstones mention people living to respectable old ages. The Greek philosopher Plato, for example, lived into his 80s. Studies of traditional hunter-gatherers also show adult deaths typically happened around the age of 70. The harsh living conditions of the past meant lots of kids didn't survive. Yeah, those who did often grew old enough to see grandchildren, and sometimes great-grandchildren. 10. The Neanderthals were so much more than just cavemen. They left behind art, structures, and innovations that rival that of early humans. In caves across Spain, researchers have found paintings and shell beads dating back at least 65,000 years, way before Homo sapiens even showed up in Europe. In fact, the beads discovered at Cueva de los Aviones might be the oldest jewelry on Earth. Archaeologists have also uncovered a massive hearth in Gibraltar's Vanguard Cave that was used to produce tar for adhesives. And in the Bruniquel Cave in France, they arranged hundreds of stalagmite pieces into rings over 170,000 years ago. In their art, going back thousands of years, they've shown that they knew how to express themselves symbolically. With brains as large as ours, these creative builders and artists were never just the brutish cavemen everyone makes them out to be. They were complex, clever hominins. 9. Radiocarbon dating can show anything's age, but radiocarbon dating, or C14, isn't a magic timestamp for everything in the past. It is a powerful tool, but it only works on organic materials. Things that used to be alive, like wood, bone, or seeds, and only up to around 50 to 60,000 years old. Beyond that, there's just not enough carbon left to measure anything accurately. It also doesn't spit out an exact calendar year if you feed it something. Results come in a date range that needs careful calibration and interpretation. things like stone tools, metal artifacts, or dinosaur fossils, carbon dating becomes completely useless. And should a sample get contaminated, the results can be way off. That's why archaeologists make use of other methods like dendrochronology or thermoluminescence and so on for materials or ages that C14 can't handle. 8. Everything Atlantis. Atlantis has taken on a life of its own, and dragged plenty of myths with it. Plato's story about a lost island civilization was meant as an allegory, not a blueprint for history. But that hasn't stopped people from turning Atlantis into everything, from a secret alien colony to a hyper-advanced master race that taught ancient people how to build pyramids, carve giant statues, or raise stone circles. Some people even claim that survivors of Atlantis escaped and restarted civilization elsewhere. In truth, there's no archaeological evidence that Atlantis ever existed outside Plato's imagination, and no proof that aliens nor a hidden super civilization handed out blueprints for Egypt's pyramids, Stonehenge, or the Nazca lines. Ancient societies developed their own incredible skills through hard work, innovation, and cultural exchange. 7. Mummies can only be found in Egypt. The Egyptians might have made mummies famous, but they weren't the only ones wrapping up their dead. 7,000 years ago, the Chinchorro people of Chile used clay and paint to preserve bodies, long before linen bandages ruled the Nile. In Peru, the Inca created seated bundle mummies wrapped in layers of textiles and buried them with offerings. In Papua New Guinea, some cultures smoked bodies to keep them intact for display in sacred sites. It also happened naturally in some places. For example, in China's Tarim Basin, the dry desert air naturally preserved the bodies of the dead, complete with colorful woven clothing. Irish peat bogs kept their dead intact for centuries with their airless mud, while Greenland's frozen graves acted like nature's deep freeze. Mummification has a far broader history than Egypt's royalty. 6. We've had soft beds since forever. Archaeologists in South Africa's Border Cave uncovered what might be the oldest bedding on Earth, dating back over 200,000 years. The layers of broad-leaved grass were stacked about a foot thick on top of ash to help keep insects away, with traces of camphor bush acting like a natural bug repellent. Researchers think the cave's residents burned and replaced these mats regularly, showing they understood hygiene and basic health care. Scanning electron microscopes even revealed flakes of stone and ochre mixed into the bedding, hinting that people might have sat there to make tools or decorate themselves. In short, comfort clearly mattered, and we've been doing our best to get a good night's rest since at least 200,000 years ago. 5. Stonehenge was part of a busy community. Stonehenge was never just a lonely circle of stones on a quiet plain. Legends have tried to explain the site for centuries. Some claim that Merlin or giants brought the stones from Ireland. Others blamed invading Danes or even imagined aliens landing there. But the truth is far more impressive. Archaeologists have shown that it was part of a huge ceremonial landscape tied to roads, wooden circles, and entire neighborhoods. Excavations at nearby Durrington Walls have revealed a thriving community of builders and their families who gathered for feasts, rituals, and celebrations. These people didn't just drag stones into place, they built a whole social network around them. This monument was designed with incredible engineering skill and connected to a larger ritual world completely different from what you'd imagine if you look at the ruins today. 4. The Sex of the Pharaohs. The pharaohs weren't always men, so notable women sat in the chair too. Hatshepsut, for example, ruled for over 20 years during Egypt's 18th dynasty. She led major trade missions and commissioned massive building projects, including her famous mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahri. Sobekneferu took the full pharaonic titles in the 12th dynasty, helping stabilize Egypt after a royal succession crisis. And then there was also Twosret, who resigned at the end of the 19th century, and possibly even Nefertiti, who some scholars think ruled in her own name as Neferneferueten. To match pharaoh tradition, these women were sometimes portrayed with masculine features like false beards and broad shoulders, which probably helped fuel the myth that Egypt's rulers were always men. 3. The Vikings didn't introduce Europe to slavery. When it comes to medieval Europe, the Vikings didn't invent slavery. They just joined a long tradition. Long before their longships ever hit European shores, slavery was woven into everyday life across the continent. The Greeks enslaved war captives, criminals, and debtors, using them in households, workshops, and farms. The Romans took it even further, running a massive slave economy fueled by conquest, where slaves built roads, worked mines, and even served as teachers or accountants. Celtic societies also practiced slavery, often capturing rivals in battle or forcing their own people into bondage to repay debts. Most enslaved people had little hope of freedom, though some could buy their way out or be freed by their owners. When the Vikings arrived, they raided for slaves too, but they were simply plugging into a system that had already been part of Europe for centuries. 2. Ancient writing wasn't just religious or sacred. Jokes made it too. Ancient writing wasn't all about gods. It included things like gossip and grocery lists. In Mesopotamia, scribes jotted down beer rations for workers, tallies of sheep, and personal letters that complained about lazy business partners. Ancient Egyptians left behind love poems, tax records, and even divorce contracts written on papyrus. Over in Pompeii, graffiti revealed everything from crude insults to political slogans, along with the odd declarations of love. And while Babylonian clay tablets held recipes, school exercises, and notes on how to brew beer, the ancient Greeks used their writing to leave jokes and satirical plays poking fun at politicians behind. So, people used writing to share news, vent frustrations, and record their daily lives. Just like we do today. Dear Diary, Gary was rude. 1. Archaeology is for all the ages. Archaeology isn't just about ancient ruins. It's active and happening all around us. These days, archaeologists dig into everything from Cold War bunkers to street art and modern protest graffiti. They explore 20th century garbage dumps, migrant trails, and even informal settlements, using the same tools and methods they would use to dig up a Bronze Age village. Way back when, in the 1970s, the Tucson Garbage Project, led by William Ratcha, uncovered all kinds of truths by going through fresh trash, like how much alcohol people actually drank compared to what they claimed. In the Arizona desert, archaeologist Jason DeLeon mapped migrant camps by collecting discarded water bottles and backpacks, tracking border crossings. And across Europe, researchers have studied Cold War shelters and modern graffiti to understand cultural change, even using satellite images to map shifting human landscapes. So, archaeology is very much alive and telling the story of right now, proving that its tools and insights belong to every age. And that's it for today. But before you go, I have a quick trivia question for you. Why is context so critical to archaeologists? Is it because A, it helps them guess the price of an artifact? B, it shows how objects fit into people's lives? C, it makes it easier to photograph artifacts? Or D, because it speeds up excavation work? Drop your answer in the comments right down there. Oh, and if there's anything I missed, let me know about that too. And if you want more busted myths, don't miss our related video, 25 facts that have been well and truly debunked. From Eve's apple that wasn't an apple at all, to why 420 really exists. You're going to want to click it. As always, thanks so much for watching. Hit subscribe, ring the bell, check our social medias, check my social medias, and catch you again next time. Let's go dig stuff up.